Welcome you all. We have a very good panel of speakers with us. We have Dr. Veena Shatrugana. She is ex-Deputy Director, National Institute of Nutrition, and we have Dinesh Balam on board. He is representing Odisha Millet Mission. And we have the third speaker, Deepjyoti Sonu Brahma. He's from Farm to Food Foundation from Assam. He hasn't joined as yet, but I believe that he will be joining us very soon. So just to give a quick context for this webinar. So we as a country has a huge diversity in terms of food, crops, and many practices we have in our country, which gives us a big edge in terms of nutritional and food security. So, and in this context, we also see that there is a huge population of our country who are suffering from malnutrition and anemia. And this is not a new thing. It is a chronic problem. And most of the time, we blame the population and poverty in this country for this kind of situation. So today we would like to explore the other possibilities as well. We would like to see what other perspectives are there on food and nutritional insecurity and problems like malnutrition. So, and we would also try to explore what are the options, and another unique thing which has happened with us, that we are faced with the worst kind of climate crisis nowadays, and it is expected that it is going to become more and more severe in the coming years and decades. So we have a twin problem. One is the high level of malnutrition and anemia in a population, and another is that the food future is in a darker shade because of the changing climatic conditions and extreme weather events. So we have to take care both of these. So in that context, Greenpeace India thought that it would be good to listen to people who have been practicing practicing ecological ways of agriculture, and who have been working on nutrition and working with farmers on popularizing millets and all. So we thought that it would be good to have people from different regions and from different background as well. So today we have Dr. Veena Shatrugana, as I shared earlier as well. She is ex-director of National Institute of Nutrition. So first, I would like to request Dr. Veena to speak on what is happening in the field of nutrition and how what has been the politics of behind the nutrition and food system in this country, and also the science behind nutrition, because you are the most eligible person for speaking on the science part of nutrition and food and dietary diversity, of course. So welcome, Dr. Veena Shatrugana.
Thank you for having me at this webinar. I really feel honored, but there is a possibility that those who have attended my earlier talks would find it, well, not as interesting as it should be. But yes, I'll try and put in as many new findings that we have managed to collect and place before you a kind of angst that many of us feel. Many of us feel about this big government program to fortify cereals, especially rice, that is being delivered to 70% of the population who are entitled to PDS. And this is amazing because the requirement of iron that is going to be fortified with rice is a few milligrams. And can you imagine the millions of tons of rice which will be procured, stored, transported, fortified, and then sent back to storage houses to be then distributed to the PDS? Just think of the enormity of the operations that is being envisaged. And rice doesn't grow in one area, it grows across the country. It is Andhra Pradesh, it is Western UP, it is Punjab, and of course, Bihar rice, I don't think is being procured. But whatever it is, if you're going to add a few milligrams of iron in a kilo of rice, then it's not something that anyone should have suggested, because the obvious reason that the government and the planners are placing before us is the huge anemia problem. And it's true, there is a problem of anemia in this country, but this is not new. We've had anemia way back in 1920s and 30s. People did recognize that India has a problem of anemia, except that the colonial rulers at that time analyzed the hemoglobin and found that the average hemoglobin in India was about 7-8 grams, whereas among the European population, it was 12 and 13. So as you would have it, urban Bombay workers had a hemoglobin of around 10 grams. Rural tea plantation workers had around 7 to 8 grams. And as you would have it, they suggested that this is the normal hemoglobin, because the Black population perhaps is happy subsisting on low levels. They didn't think through the fact that hemoglobin levels standards do not change across races, across poor and rich. There is a standard of hemoglobin which is universally now accepted, the WHO standard, where every population is expected to reach its ideal. And let me talk about women, which is around 11 grams. And even in pregnancy, we would like women to be around 10 to 11 grams. Now, that much for history. But then by the time we achieved independence, it was a desperate measure to be taken. We had a large number of women dying during labor because of bleeding, hemoglobin, low hemoglobins, bleeding, and resulting in maternal deaths. So it was a desperate measure where iron folic acid tablets were distributed to pregnant women. Now, why iron folic acid? It is known that hemoglobin is produced, it's a huge molecule, requires many, many nutrients. And that includes good quality protein. It includes vitamin C, B12, folic acid, thiamine. I mean, you name it, it's necessary, including, of course, magnesium, copper, and iron. But since iron was the major deficient atom, it was decided that let's just pump iron first and let's hope women will survive. And that's what was attempted. recognizing that all the other nutrients are important. But what was happening in the country is that we didn't have enough food, and therefore there was just a cereal-based diet which did not provide any other nutrients except carbohydrate and a bit of thiamine, perhaps, and other small amounts of other nutrients. So iron was pumped in as an emergency measure. But even this iron was given to pregnant women. And once it is given to pregnant women, you must assume it is under supervision, because the nurse gives it and then she follows it up. So side effects, anything that happens is recorded. Now, the anemia continues 60-70% is because we never improved the quality of food of this class of people. Definitely the middle and upper classes have a whole variety of foods that they have access to thanks to better purchasing power. But the poor have stayed with a cereal dense diet. If you look at the kind of food they eat in the north or the south, it is roti with onion, tomato chutney, or with some patla thin dal. And in the south, it is rice, polished rice, with some tomato onion chutney, or with the rasam. What is called rasam is like you take 10 grams of dal and make it into 2 liters of rasam. You can make it into any amount, of course. So there's hardly any protein. And mind you, pulses are a good source of iron, but there is hardly pulse production and intakes are going down. So if you could give us enough pulses, we would be able to handle this problem. So the anemia continues because quality of food has not improved. But the government is stuck in the iron age days, literally like a stone age, that it is only iron that will improve hemoglobin. I wish the government would consult with people who know about hematologists, who know about nutritionists, etc., to recognize that iron is not a solution. Iron could in fact be counterproductive, as I will just now explain. Now, even if you give a lot of iron, it's not going to be absorbed. To absorb iron, you need a lot of vitamin C. Vitamin C is available in fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables. In addition, heme iron, iron from animal food, is much better absorbed, whereas iron from cereal pulses, the absorption is 5%. So even if you eat 500 grams, you know how much you will get. I'm not talking of grams, sorry, milligrams. So it's 5%. To improve the absorption, you need to give vegetables and fruits and other substances for better absorption. Now, what does the government do about providing these things? There's nothing in the plan. So you're just going to spike the rice with iron and distribute it without supervision, without any kind of monitoring. Now, what will happen in the population is this iron, which does not get absorbed, actually gets stored in the body as ferritin. Now, ferritin is a very dangerous molecule. It is known to be associated with diabetes and blood pressure. And in fact, if many of you knew that during COVID times, ferritin was an indicator of worsening of situation of the persons. You remember CRP, ferritin, LDH, etc., were done in those who were going into anoxic conditions. So ferritin is a dangerous molecule. So iron is going to be stored as ferritin. Number two, recent studies have shown that this ferritin is associated with diseases like diabetes and blood pressure. So we already have these diseases. So we are going to further increase the incidence of chronic diseases. The third thing is, if you give iron in the absence of proper food, it's a very dangerous molecule. It has many oxidative qualities. So what it does is it increases the multiplication of many organisms, including in the gut. Now, the gut is now known to be one of the most protective organs of the body. The lining of the gut has lactobacillus kind of organisms that prevent chronic infections, etc. This iron is going to destroy these protective organisms. That's called microbiome, which is going to be affected. The other thing is, it's very well established for those who are doctors here that we never give iron to populations who are suffering from tuberculosis or malaria or any other acute infection till the infection is controlled, because there is a flare-up of these infections. These organisms, bacteria, require iron to multiply. And therefore, in a country which has the largest number of TB patients, how is the government going to make sure that this fortified rice doesn't reach TB patients? Or you tell the TB patients not to consume it till you are stabilized. This is inconceivable that such a program will address this problem. Now, the third thing is that there are certain conditions called sickle cell anemia, thalassemia. These are genetic disorders causing anemia, and they have an iron overload. That is, their red blood cells just break up and release iron, which gets stored in the liver, destroys the liver. And so these populations must get blood transfusion if they have to survive. But the iron overload really causes liver damage. So they are also going to get iron fortified rice. So my point is that in a country which boasts of 75 years of independence, a country that boasts of so much of progress, or does it boast? I'm not sure now. Isn't it important that we get down and work up a diet that everybody has access to? It's true that during a pandemic, the government was very concerned, but what did the government do? Just doled out rice, just doled out wheat. And cereal is not an answer to problems of food inadequacy. Cereal overload has many, many problems. And one of the things that should have been given are pulses, oil, and maybe eggs, and foods that are protective for children. We have surplus of milk production. Milk powder could have been given for children. But the general feeling is that poor should be happy if they get enough cereals. Look, I'm not against cereals. Of course, we need cereals because that is our base. But not more than 50 to 60% of calories must come from cereal. The rest must come from fruits, vegetables, milk, eggs, flesh foods, you name it, the variety, depending on the region. So, but we still have not got out of our mindsets where if a poor person gets enough rice, they should be thankful. So we are bound to have anemia. We are bound to carry on with this state of affairs till we address the question of food diversity. Now, how many nutrients can you fortify rice with? 1, 2, 5? But in today's times, we know that there are something like 300 protective nutrients that food provides. And these are called organic acids, they're called polyphenols, oligosaccharides, flavonoids, saponins, carotenoids. I mean, these are all antioxidant, anti-cancer. See, we all know about haldi being such a superfood, but there are many, many, many other foods which provide all these nutrients to poor people, to people who are constantly subjected to the onslaught of smoke and pollutants, etc., etc. These protective molecules come from diversity of foods, and in most instances it is nuts, oil seeds, fruits, vegetables, etc., that will give these new nutrients that I am talking about. So in such a situation, I think we must not make a mockery of science. We must not make a mockery of poor people's lives and reverse this decision. And I think there's nothing wrong in reversing a decision if it's good for the population. And I would really urge this group to do whatever is possible to put an end to this monstrous plan that is looming ahead. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Veena. It was crisp, it was informative. Thank you for that. And it is really great that you completed your first opening remarks within the time limit. And the format we have decided for this webinar is that there will be an opening remark for 10 minutes from the speakers. And after that, we will have open house. And post that, we will have a concluding remarks from all the three speakers. So, and we will take the questions during the open house session. I think that is for around 25 minutes. So we all will get enough chance to ask questions. Now we are very clear that for a better absorption of some nutrients, especially like iron and folic acid. A lot of other nutrients and micronutrients are required. So,
Sir, I'm really sorry. Sorry for interrupting, sir. I'm a student of nutrition. Forgive me, sir. You told already that the open house is later, but ma'am being the deputy director of NIN, I have only one question, sir. Probably she can answer it later, but only one question, sir, pertinent about the education of dietitians, sir. Okay, is NIN in any way responsible for the way dietitians are being trained, ma'am? That's my only question, ma'am. Thank you, thank you. Sorry, sir.
Can we
sure,
take this up later? This is
yeah,
an important question.
yeah, it is quite an important question because it is somehow coming from the top, I guess.
Shall we take it up later?
Yeah.
Thank you. Very important question.
Yeah,
We'll address it.
yeah. So, uh, uh, from here, because Dr. Shatrugana has categorically talked about mandatory fortification of one grain, and that is rice. So we are not against rice at all. We really like rice, and we celebrate the diversity of it. We had around 1.1 lakh varieties of indigenous rice in this country, and we lost almost 94% of it due to some reasons. So whatever is left, uh, if this kind of exercise is practiced, there is a severe threat that the rest varieties might also get wiped out, because those indigenous varieties are not going to be taken into consideration when this kind of practices of rice fortification, mandatory rice fortification is done. So that is a problem. So I would like to invite Dinesh Balam, who is representing Odisha Millet Mission here, to talk about the experience of working with farmers on propagation of millets, and what is the response of the consumers, because most of the time it is said that consumers don't like millets. So there is a very low demand, and obviously when the demand are very high for something, farmers start growing those things. So I would like to hear from Dinesh on the experiences in Odisha, and how it has changed the lives of the farmers there, and how it is helping them in assured incomes and climate resilience as well. Yeah. Welcome, Dinesh. You will have to unmute, boss.
Dinesh, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. I think I got unmuted. I have a brief presentation, but but I think I was really thrilled hearing Veena Madam's comments on the fortification. Before I start my presentation, I would like to say what are the key policy changes that Odisha Millets Mission has brought. Some of the slides can be skipped, so I would like to talk the key things. The first thing is that within Odisha, before Odisha Millets Mission, nobody really thought that the local land races, the local seeds can be part of any formal government program. In fact, it's the first program which actually brought in local seeds as a part of the agriculture program, which were never prominent, because generally any variety is only, you can only use improved varieties, either released by SAUs or the KVKs and etc. So that was the first thing. And over a period of time of 4 years, we have shown that not only they are locally suitable, they are preferred by the communities, and even scientifically, they are actually quite comparative. Their performance is quite good. In fact, some of the local varieties are much better high yielding than others. So that's, I think, is the one. Now, after that, in most of the programs, so in the Agriculture Department of Odisha, there is acceptance that whatever locally preferred varieties are being allowed. So that, I think, is a transformative change from a policy perspective. The second thing that we brought in is that wherever the core responsibility, that agriculture department never talked about dietary diversity, never talked about diversification. So this is first program where agriculture department officials, right from the grassroots officials, were actively involved in the food festivals, interactions with the communities, and they participated in the different district level events, etc. This is not just some recipes which are tailor made at some institute and then they are being done, but so a lot of food festivals at the grassroots level, village level, they participated in awareness, and I think that has made a transformative change in the way agriculture extension workers look at nutrition. So right now, the government of Odisha is also considering to come up with what kind of indicators can you set up for agri extension workers on how they are contributing to nutrition at the grassroots level. I mean, it may be long time, it's easier said than done, but that's a transformative way of agriculture extension workers looking at nutrition or dietary diversity than productivity as such, because then all these things also seep into it. The third thing is that before Odisha Millets Mission, when you procure any commodity, millets or rice or cereals, it has to be, the land became a very important thing. The cultivators were never certified, the landowners were certified. And the cultivator certification, if it had to be done, it had to be done through a contract and revenue inspector, etc. So we brought in a process where the cultivator certification can be done by the local PRA members, or local sarpanches. So we kind of took away a lot of power of revenue inspectors in procurement. And that has been a game changer, because 92% of Odisha farmers are small and marginal farmers, and 70% are tenant cultivators, not exactly owners, as per the different data available. So now in most of the government procurement, especially pulse and oil seed and etc., government has adopted this approach and are moving towards cultivator certification, not a land certification, which I think is a major thing that needs to be done. The fourth thing is that when we started with millets, I was told that millets have a lot of high fiber and etc. So it cannot be done. It's not good for it. So there were a lot of resistance on actually getting it done. So we actually worked with CFTRI and even some of the officers from N9 were involved. And over a period of time, we have done various tests and etc. And we have put a scientific validation that it is possible with some changes. For example, you need to process, you need to refine, let's say, a ragi little more because it upper layer, endosperm layer has a lot more iron. But it is possible to have a scientifically validated, scientific validation of local recipes is possible. And it can be done at and it can be also, instead of doing, like we had a lot of debate between like this was like a couple of years ago where centralization of meals were being proposed. I think the WCA department said that they will send a packets of meals and etc. So one off-cited reason was that the quality meals are not being prepared at the decentralized level. So we have, at least in our program, like in the Ragi Laddu program that were demonstrated, I cannot go through all the details due to paucity of time, but we have shown, and with the third party evaluation, that the Ragi Laddu mix got a 99%, over 95% approval rate compared to wheat THR. Yeah. And it was prepared locally by SHGs, and all the quality parameters have been met. And in fact, it has got a great, in fact, when we started, there were a lot of opposition from WCA department. Now the entire WCA department, I mean, not because we have advocated, but they have through their own channels realized that it is possible to create a quality, locally produced, organic, with a local land-raised food, and it can meet scientific standards, it can do it. So these are the 5 key, what I would say, the key policy achievements we have done. I will share a brief presentation, but let's clip most of these slides because they are perhaps not required in this context. Is my slide visible?
Yeah, Dinesh, perfectly.
Okay. So broadly, as we said that in Odisha Millet Mission, we've taken that we should work on end to end from consumption to production. Which was the first program, I mean, before the folk to farm approach became famous, that this is the first agriculture program which clearly said that we will focus on consumption, not on production. We will focus on drudgery reduction than production. And whatever procurement shall happen, we'll done locally through WSHGs and FPOs. And so that most of the captive market or at least the economy generated by government goes into it. I am not competent enough to comment on the fortification and etc. But what I do believe is that even if, let's say, there is some technology which figures out how to add all the minerals to rice, but if that is what going to do, then we know that in Odisha, for example, out of 35 lakh hectare, only 15 lakh hectare is suitable for rice. Rest 20 lakh hectare is unsuitable. It is creating climate, it's leading to low productivity. It is damaging economy, depleting our aquifers, and it is also not allowing dietary diversity. So I see fortification as a more dangerous because it will damage ecology in a long run, not just from how effective it will be in the nutrition standpoint. If all the nutrients can be given into rice, then why bother with other crops? Then don't do it. Then it takes away the lot of question on water, because water is a major issue, the climate change, greenhouse gases. So I think from ecological angle of fortification is not often talked about. Let's say you build a hypothetical case that all nutrients can be given to rice and all crops are given to rice. What ecological damage, what methane emission can be done? I think that's a very interesting argument, and it will show quite bad results given our own soil pollution and others. I'll skip to the next slide, but broadly we started with 30 blocks. Now we are moving to around 140 blocks in another 2016. We started with around in our own around 3,000 hectare in first year. Now we are covering nearly 60,000 hectare. That is demonstrations. We started with 8,000 farmers, and we are expecting to reach. We have already reached 1 lakh farmers this year. We will reach around 2 lakh farmers in another 3-4 years. The procurement, for example, when we started, we are only 10, 12, 18,000 quintal was in 2018-19. This year we're planning to do 4 lakh quintal, out of which 2 lakh quintal will be directly through FPOs and SHGs. And from next year, we want to ensure all the 6 lakh quintals are procured directly through FPO and SHGs. That adds substantially into their knowledge base. More importantly, this helps SHGs and FPOs to understand the basics of quality management and storage, which what we have seen is that also moves into other direction, how they manage their other goods and etc. More importantly, now the government of Odisha is keen on taking this experience on millets to pulses, vegetables, and fruits. Fruits may be in small scale, especially maybe where there are funds like DMF and others, because it's quite expensive to do the fruits related thing. But there also we're trying to see how whatever the locally suited vegetables can be done, so that you don't have to again do the same mini version of what happens in the rice in like grow in Punjab and get to other states. So that is still going on. I'm hoping that it will take some time. This took 4-5 years, maybe another 3-4 years that will be done. So government is also keen to scale it up. To put it very simply, we have done a third-party analysis. We found that after Odisha Millet Mission, through local land races and organic practices, and this is now validated by enough agencies, that yields have doubled and incomes have tripled. So it is possible to do, and part of the reason is the low base. I'm not saying that it's very, very high, but with the Odisha low base, the incomes have tripled. But even if we do not, even if we consider normal salary base of 6,000, which is average farmer income as per the Doubling Farmers Income Report, it is still 1.5 to 2 times, which is still considerable given that these are poor, tribal, and rain-fed farmers. I can give more details if there are any questions. Broadly, what we're trying to do is that here this will take more time, but our is decentralized procurement, where we ensure that we also have empaneled FRA and others, which I mentioned before. And the entire procurement happens within the block or within the district. If there's not enough storage within the block, it goes to the district. Another thing that we do is that we do a massive food festivals and etc. Because what we see is that whatever ICDS, MDM, PDS that we do is a part of the foods diet. It's important to bring back the idea of millet. For example, the first meeting that I did in Kalahandi, when we started Millet Mission 5 years ago, a lot of the tribal farmers actually cried. They said that they remembered Sarpanch actually cried. They said they remember how when they were young, they used to be discriminated based on the food they used to eat, because they used to get PHO and all that. And so I think Millets need not be seen only as a crop. It should be seen as exclusion, inclusion, and larger sociological revival. The pride in your own food, which is important. So we have done a lot of trainings and a lot of recipe festivals, a lot of awareness. We have probably touched every village in our 15 in our 84 blocks in 15 districts. And we have directly based on our MIS, we have directly reached out to 1 million people through our events directly, and indirectly it's difficult to estimate how many it is done. This is a ragi laddu mix that we said I just talked about. I will just run through it. Basically, what we did is when we were told that it can't be done, we spent 1-2 years working on different recipes. The base thing that we follow is that we first work with the community. We don't go with the scientific approach. We work with the community, figure out what community likes. Then we take the recipe. Then we do the technical analysis and etc. Figure out what there'll be some changes that needs to be. Sometimes you need to roast it more. Sometimes when you need to dehull it little bit later and etc. etc. So we did a lot of tests and etc. But what we broadly got conclusion, this is done by CFTRA, is that the shelf life is better than wheat THR. And it is also showing a nutrition profile on RDA is also similar to the recipes that is being given. It is not just millet, it's also the millet, pulses and oil seeds, all of them are mixed. And we do this sort of campaigns. We created what's called Millie the Millet Girl. So they're basically some cartoon stories. The many stories are like that. And this actually got a very good response to what we found. We did a lot of documentation information. As I said, this is the acceptability. I think this is what changed the mind of the government, that local foods, local recipes, when you take the consent of the community, the THR, which is mostly does not have a good track record in Odisha. With the same system, you can deliver a very good, tasty, healthy, and also acceptable recipe. I'll not get into details of this. Perhaps I don't have time. But the long is that all the technical analysis that have been done broadly are showing that good shelf life, good acceptance, good taste, good flavor. So we have now done it, the Ragi Laddu initiative in 2 districts covering 1.5 lakh children for a period of 1.5 years. Now in a phased manner, we want to take it up to another 15 districts. We are also currently piloting THR, the Ragi THR. Again, we want to go slow, maybe take 1-2 years in finalizing everything. After that, it can be scaled up. In midday meal, we are trying to explore, but in Odisha, it's primarily Ragi. We don't have little meat and enough quantity in midday meal, but we are trying to work out some snack items. The procurement has been going on for last 3-4 years, but so it started in 2018. So the procurement will keep continuing. We also got necessary approvals from Government of India. So we are hoping that the procurement will continue, at least the areas where millet was replaced previously by high yielding rice, damaging both soil and the land type, upland and midlands. We are thinking of hope. And I'm hopeful that this experience we can replicate with pulses, oil seeds, fruits, tubers, and vegetables. We have received the necessary government approvals. But yeah, the journey is long and we will take some time to figure out each of it, just like it took us time to figure out the recipe that is accepted by community and technically also well. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Dinesh bhai. It was really a fantastic presentation and a lot of new information over there. And as you also said that it is not rice versus millet, but not dependence on one single grain, basically diversifying that has the answer. And when we talk about nutrition of people, poor people, then it is told that nutritious diet is too expensive, and since we are emerging economy and we are developing economy, so and we don't have that much of resources to invest on dietary diverse food. So I think you have covered quite a lot of that, and as you shared that it is not much costly. Yeah, it is not that costly, which is normally portrayed. So I would, at this point of time, I would like to add. I would like to request Deepjyoti, who is from Farm to Food Foundation, and he is working with the community and especially with adolescent children in improving the dietary diversity and in improving the agrobiodiversity in the region. And so I would like to ask Deepjyoti to talk about whatever his organization is doing and how it is helping the community in improving the dietary diversity and in nutrition, and how whether it is too costly to take care of nutrition of everyone. Hi,
Hi,
welcome.
hi. Thank you, Ishtiaq भाई. जो आपने सवाल पूछा कि क्या पौष्टिक आहार बहुत ही महंगा होता है और उसके लिए बहुत ज्ञानी गुणी लोगों की ज़रूरत होती है. हमारे भी कुछ ऐसी सोच विचार था कि to fight the malnutrition challenge, probably we have the solution. We are the one who's going to give the solutions to these poor people. So let me set a little more background to this conversation. We are operating out of Assam, और असम में we have a very fertile land. हाँ, इतना fertile कि आज से नहीं, तकरीबन 200-250 साल पहले ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट में हमारे लैंड के फर्टिलिटी के बारे में बात किया गया था, जब वो यहाँ पर they were setting up tea garden. But over the years, एग्रीकल्चर को लेके जिस तरह के हमारे हालात रहे, जिस तरह से हमारे परसेप्शंस बने हैं, मानसिकता बने हैं एग्रीकल्चर को लेकर, पीपल हैव मूव्ड आउट ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. एग्रीकल्चर हैज बीन रिजॉर्टेड टू द लास्ट रिजॉर्ट कि आपके पास और करने को कुछ नहीं रहता, तब आप एग्रीकल्चर रखेंगे. और ऐसे मानसिकता लेकर अगर आप मैल न्यूट्रिशन को फाइट करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो probably we are fighting a wrong battle. Probably our entire strategy is very poor. In fact, what has happened because people have moved out of agriculture and getting into the market economy, what is happening in Assam, and not just in Assam but many parts of our country, we used to boast of our छोटू सा होमस्टेड किचन गार्डन. सबके घरों पे छोटे छोटे होया करते थे. अब हालत ऐसा है कि मार्केट से आपने टमाटर मंगवा लिया, आलू मंगवा लिया, गोभी मंगवा लिया, बस खाना बन गया आपका. सो आप अपने गार्डन की तरफ तो ध्यान ही नहीं दे रहे थे. सो because we had the negative perception about agriculture, we started also losing out on the homestead kitchen garden. So we started working with youth and other adult farmers on helping them look at agriculture as an entrepreneurship perspective. But we thought कि यार इनसे बात करने से सिर्फ इनसे बात करने से नहीं चलेगा. We also need to go down to the very stage जहाँ पे ये मानसिकता या ये perceptions formed होते हैं. Where we form our ideas about agriculture, where we form the ideas about our life, we form the idea about our surrounding, our village, our community, and that is the school. So what we did was in school, I'll quickly share. So in school, what we have done is we went to school children and said कि हम आपके साथ मिलके एक छोटू सा kitchen garden setup करना चाहते हैं. Of course, they were excited, but there were lots of questions like who will give the money for the fencing, क्योंकि एग्रीकल्चर तो महंगा होता है. सीड्स के लिए पैसा कौन देगा, क्योंकि सीड्स महंगा होता है. टेक्निकल ज्ञान कौन देगा, क्योंकि केवीके और एग्रीकल्चर एक्सपर्ट्स बहुत स्कूल्स तो आते नहीं है वो लोग, तो हमें ज्ञान कहाँ से मिलेगा. We said, would you like to try it out or not? They said कि हाँ करने में क्या है, हम लोग कर लेते हैं. So जैसे ही वो लोग मैदान में कूद पड़े तो 2-4 सवालों के साथ हम लोगों ने डिस्कशन शुरू किया. अच्छा, अभी हमें अगर खेती बाड़ी करना है तो उसके लिए बेसिक सबसे पहले तो जमीन चाहिए. स्कूल के पास थोड़ा बहुत जमीन मिल जाता है, खासकर ग्रामीण इलाकों में. फेंसिंग मटेरियल का क्या करेंगे, तो कुछ लोगों ने कहा कि हमारे गांव घर के पीछे दो एक होंगे बैम्बू पीसेस, तो वो मैं लेकर आऊंगा। ऐसे ऐसे करके स्कूल में अगर 150 बच्चे हैं तो 150 बच्चे दो दो करके एक अगर डंडा लेकर आए, बैम्बूस लेकर आए, तो पूरे गार्डन का अच्छे से फेंसिंग हो जाता है। तो एंटरप्रेन्योर का एक बहुत ही बढ़िया वो होता है, स्किल होता है रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट। इस बैम्बू फेंसिंग जो आप देख रहे हैं, इसमें एक आना भी खर्चा नहीं हुआ है। आप देखेंगे इस पे, बल्कि इस पे इन्होंने बहुत ही कम स्टील वायर भी यूज किए, बहुत कम स्टील वायर यूज किए। मैक्सिमम जगह पे उन्होंने बैम्बू के रेशे से टाई अप करने की कोशिश किया। क्यों? क्योंकि हमने उनको शुरुआत में ही बोला कि फार्म टू फूड इज नॉट गोइंग टू गिव यू मनी बिकॉज एग्रीकल्चर इज एक्सपेंसिव। सो दे सेड ओके, अब हमने तैयार तो कर लिया, लेकिन बोए क्या? हमने कहा कि आप बताओ कहाँ से सीड आपको मिलेगा। तो बहुत बातचीत करने के बाद किसी बच्चे ने कहा कि अब कोई बात नहीं सर, आप चिंता मत करो, मेरे घर पे कुछ पड़ा हुआ है। तो मैंने कहा कि ठीक है, आप पूरे क्लास चले जाओ इनके घर और वहां से सीड्स लेकर आओ। So in the picture, you would see the children are going into the community asking for local seeds and saplings. बीजदान यात्रा उन्होंने वहां पर शुरू किया। बीजदान यात्रा अब गांव में ये है कि हमारे कम्युनिटी में ये है कि अगर आपके घर पे कुछ बच्चे आए हैं कुछ मांगने के लिए, आप उनसे थोड़ा सा बातचीत तो करेंगे, राइट? उस बातचीत में क्या होता है कि बहुत सारे आप ज्ञान भी उनके साथ शेयर करते हैं कि दिस इज हाउ यू टेक केयर ऑफ दीज सीड्स। ये जो सैपलिंग मैं दे रहा हूँ इसको ऐसे इसको संभालते हैं, इसको ऐसे बोते हैं, इसको इतने महीने के बाद आप थोड़े से छटाई कर देना, इतने महीने के बाद इस पे फूल लगेंगे, इतने दिनों के बाद इस पर ये लगेंगे। तो सारा ज्ञान भी शेयर हो रहा है। तो बीजदान यात्रा जो शुरू किया था बीज कलेक्ट करने के लिए, वो धीरे धीरे करके ज्ञानदान भी दे दिया। दूसरी बात कि कई सारे जगह पर थोड़ा सा हार्ड मिट्टी भी होता है, तो वहां पर गांव वालों को बच्चों ने रिक्वेस्ट किया कि कैन यू प्लीज कम इन एंड हेल्प अस इन सेटिंग अप दिस गार्डन। सो श्रमदान भी हो गया, बीजदान, ज्ञानदान और श्रमदान। सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज द चिल्ड्रन गॉटन they develop a skill of resource management. They also develop the skills to get the community, local people involved in the gardening. उसके फलस्वरूप क्या हुआ कि हमारे गार्डन में गोभी के फल नहीं है, हमारे गार्डन में जो एक्सोटिक वैरायटी ऑफ कैप्सिकम है वो नहीं है, हमारे गार्डन में लोकल वैरायटीज ऑफ वेजिटेबल ग्रो करना शुरू किया। आप यकीन नहीं करेंगे, बिहू के दौरान जो हमारे यहाँ पे असम में एक बहुत ही बड़ी फेस्टिवल, हमारे यहाँ पर 101 सब्जियां परोसने का हमारा रीति रिवाज था एक जमाने में। लेकिन जब से हमारा किचन गार्डन, जब से हम लोग लोकल साग सब्जी से दूर रहना शुरू कर दिए, तब से हम ये भूल गए हैं। तब हमारे बच्चे क्या कर रहे हैं, कम्युनिटी में जा जाके इन सब्जियों को, इन हर्ब्स को, इन वेजिटेबल्स को आइडेंटिफाई करना शुरू किया एंड दे ब्रॉट इट बैक into the practice, not just within their school nutrition garden, but also they, I mean, many of these are like growing wild. कुछ दीवार के पीछे है, कुछ बिल्डिंग के पीछे, कोई बड़े से खेत के बाजू में ग्रो हो जाता है, कोई धान के साथ ही ग्रो हो जाता है। इन बच्चों ने उनको आइडेंटिफाई करना शुरू कर दिया, तो ऑटोमेटिकली डाइटरी डाइवर्सिटी उनका हो गया, क्योंकि ये सारे वेजिटेबल जो है वो मिड डे मील में उन्होंने कंज्यूम करना शुरू कर दिया। अब यहाँ तक तो ठीक है कि एक मील में तो खा रहे हैं, लेकिन आगे क्या होगा? आगे ये है कि आप लोग देखेंगे बच्चे अगर स्कूल में कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग चीज सीखा है तो वो जरूर घर आकर या तो माता पिता को बताएंगे, नहीं तो खुद ब खुद कुछ कुछ प्रैक्टिस करना शुरू करेंगे। और यही हुआ जब हमने इनको ये इंटायर स्कूल न्यूट्रिशन गार्डन का प्रक्रिया बहुत ही मजेदार, येट बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग, जो कि उनको लर्निंग सीखने में, साइंस मैथमेटिक्स सब कुछ सीखने में भी मदद कर रहा था। तो बच्चों ने क्या किया, ऑटोमेटिकली धीरे धीरे करके इस चीज को अपने घरों पे भी रेप्लिकेट करना आरंभ कर दिया। तो बच्चे इनफैक्ट ड्यूरिंग द लॉकडाउन हमारे सभी बच्चों के घरों पे ये छोटे 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 होम स्टे न्यूट्रिशन गार्डन खड़े हो गए थे सबके घरों पे। तो इससे क्या हो रहा था कि बच्चों को जो डाइट्स चाहिए, जो उनके एज अप्रोप्रिएट डाइट्स है, वो धीरे धीरे करके उनको मिलना शुरू हुआ। उस पर डाइवर्सिटी भी आ गया, क्योंकि लोकल वेजिटेबल्स और सब्जियों की हम बात कर रहे हैं। तो हमें ये देखने को मिला कि पहला तो कि मैल न्यूट्रिशन को फाइट करने के लिए आपको बहुत जरूरी है कि सिर्फ खिलाने से नहीं होगा, मानसिकता को भी चेंज करने की जरूरत है। हम जो अर्बन एरियाज में रहते हैं, हमें पता है कि सब्जियों, ग्रीन वेजिटेबल्स खाने चाहिए, शायद हमारे बच्चों को भी पता है, लेकिन आपको पता है कि हमारे बच्चे और सब्जियां, मतलब एक साउथ पोल है तो एक नॉर्थ पोल है, दोनों पोल्स कभी मिलते नहीं। लेकिन यहाँ पर ये हुआ कि बच्चों ने कहा कि यार ये वेजिटेबल तो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग से हमने ग्रो किया है, तो क्यों ना हम इसको ट्राई भी करें। तो इसमें क्या हो रहा है कि उनका बिहेवियर चेंज हो रहा है। बिहेवियर इसलिए चेंज हुआ क्योंकि इस वेजिटेबल गार्डन के ऊपर उनका अपना ओनरशिप बना, और ओनरशिप बनने से क्या हुआ कि ऑटोमेटिकली उनको लगा कि यार ये वेजिटेबल अगर मैंने ग्रो किया तो मुझे ही खाना चाहिए। हम्म, तो उस तरह से, प्लस दूसरी चीज आप ये भी देखेंगे कि अभी जो मेल न्यूट्रिशन का जो चैलेंजेस आ रहे थे गांव में, उसका सोल्यूशन भी इनके हाथों में आ गया है। बहुत ही सिंपल सोल्यूशन है, ज्यादा इसमें पैसा वैसा, महंगाई तो शायद ही कहीं दिखा होगा आपको। तो पैसों का कहीं खर्च नहीं है, छोटा सा गार्डन ये सेटअप कर देते हैं, खुद ही चला लेते हैं। गार्डन, स्कूल न्यूट्रिशन गार्डन से लेके उनके होमस्टेड गार्डन तक इन्होंने खुद ब खुद सेटअप किया है। और जैसे ही होमस्टेड न्यूट्रिशन गार्डन सेटअप किया तो फिर उसमें उनके पेरेंट्स भी लग गए हैं। अब जब पेरेंट्स देख रहे हैं कि हमारे बच्चे अगर ये वेजिटेबल्स ग्रो कर रहे हैं और खा रहे हैं, तो ऑटोमेटिकली जो पूरा फैमिली का जो डाइट है वो चेंज होना शुरू हो गया। सो हमने ये जाना कि बहुत आसान है अगर हम लोगों की कैपेसिटी बिल्ड करें, लोगों को इस चीज को ओन अप करने के लिए कहें। और ये नहीं कि हम उनको बीमार जने को अगर अच्छा सा कपड़ा पहना दें तो वो बीमार ठीक नहीं होगा। हाँ, उस आदमी को खुद मेहनत करना होगा तब वो ठीक हो पाएगा। और खुद मेहनत करने और खुद ठीक होने के लिए उसको उसके कैपेसिटी बिल्ड करना चाहिए। हमें उसको एक एनवायरनमेंट ऐसा देना चाहिए जहां पर वो अपने स्किल्स को वो इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाए। हमारे 2-3 साल तो लगे जहाँ पे गार्डन को एक साल में एक बार चलाने के लिए, मतलब 2 महीना चलता था हमारे पहले 2-3 सालों में, जब हम लोग स्कूल न्यूट्रिशन गार्डन शुरू किया। हमें लगा कोई बात नहीं, ठीक है, अभी 10 साल हो गए, 10 सालों में आके अब फाइनली हमारे स्कूल्स में साल में 3 बार ये लोग वेजिटेबल्स और फसलों का पूरा कंजम्पशन करते हैं। बहुत टाइम लगता है, लेकिन अभी मुझे उन बच्चों को जाके कहने की जरूरत नहीं है कि भैया वेजिटेबल्स खाओ, वो खुद खा रहे हैं। उनके फैमिलीज वाले कह रहे हैं कि हमारे घर पे तो वेजिटेबल्स हैं। हाँ, so this is the small experiment that we have done at Farm to Food Foundation, and what we have also done is we have partnered with the Assam Agriculture University, क्योंकि हम कह रहे हैं कि भैया इन वेजिटेबल्स में पौष्टिकता है, लेकिन उसके पीछे साइंटिफिक एविडेंस है कि नहीं। तो उसको जानने के लिए हम लोगों ने असम एग्रीकल्चर यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ बातचीत किया। उन्होंने तो एक में से तकरीबन 30 एक सब्जियों का उन्होंने न्यूट्रिशन का मैपिंग करके हमें दिया। हमें लगा कि चलो भैया, हम जो कर रहे हैं उसके पीछे साइंटिफिक रीजन भी है। एक है जो लोगों का सोच है कि हाँ, गांव का एक नॉलेज है कि इसमें वेजिटेबल्स में न्यूट्रिशन है, दूसरा उस पर साइंटिफिक बैकिंग भी आ जाता है। और ये सारे आप देखेंगे कि बाहर से कुछ भी नहीं आया, ना ही हमने एग्रीकल्चर एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाया, ना ही हम सीड्स लाया, ना ही हमने उस पर पैसा खर्चा किया। क्योंकि अगर वो अपने पैरों पे नहीं खड़ा हो पाएंगे तो फिर वो तो हमेशा ही मेल न्यूट्रिशन रहेंगे ना, चाहे आप उनको खिला पिला के मोटे कर दें। एनीवे, सो ये रहा हमारा छोटा सा एक्सपेरिमेंट। एंड सॉरी, मेरा इंटरनेट थोड़ा सा आना जाना कर रहा है क्योंकि आई एम ऑन द रोड। बट थैंक यू इश्तियाक भाई, आपने बहुत अच्छा मौका दिया। और हमसे पहले जो 2 स्पीकर्स थे, डॉक्टर शत्रुघ्ना, उनसे भी बहुत कुछ जानने को मिला, बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला। उम्मीद है कि कभी हम उनसे भी बातचीत कर पाएंगे, उनको हम अपने कार्यक्रम में ले आ पाएं और थोड़ा सा उनसे मदद मिल जाए कि थोड़ा सा हमें अगर साइंटिफिक अप्रोच और न्यूट्रिशन के ऊपर थोड़ा सा और अप्रोच पे सपोर्ट कर दे तो बहुत बढ़िया रहेगा। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू दीपज्योति, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है ना। और खास करके जिस पैशन के साथ आप बात रख रहे थे, दैट वाज रियली वेरी इन्फेक्शियस, यू नो। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर वेरी नाइस एंड vibrant performance, or not presentation. I won't say it is a presentation, but it is experience sharing. So that is really fantastic, Deepjyoti. So We have one more very brief presentation from Rohin. Uh, Ro- Rohin is the co-author of a report called Adding Diversity to Plate, which we have recently launched. I would request Rohin to talk about the report briefly. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Ishteyaque. I'll try to complete it in next 5 minutes because there are many questions in the chat box already. So, जितनी बात अभी हुई है उसमें एक चीज है, जैसे अभी दीप ज्योति ने भी बोला, वीना मैम ने बोला, और उसके पहले दिनेश बालम भी कह रहे थे। तो हम लोग भी ये जानने को बहुत क्यूरियस थे कि अगर गवर्नमेंट और प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने ऐसा अनाउंसमेंट किया है, और बहुत अच्छा लगता है सुन के कि हम एनीमिया को टैकल करना चाहते हैं, माल न्यूट्रिशन को टैकल करना चाहते हैं, तो क्या हमारे पास इनफ, हमारा आधार क्या है, व्हाट इज द बेस, और हम किस बेसिस पे फिर ये लेकर आ रहे हैं कि हम फोर्टिफाई करेंगे राइस। तो हम लोगों ने सोच, एज ग्रीन पीस हम लोगों ने कुछ आरटीआईज लगाए गवर्नमेंट मिनिस्ट्रीज में, उनके डिपार्टमेंट्स में, और मैं बहुत ब्रीफली उन आरटीआईज के रिस्पॉन्सेज इस लार्जर ग्रुप के साथ शेयर करूंगा। तो द फर्स्ट आरटीआई वाज विद कंज्यूमर अफेयर एंड फूड एंड पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मिनिस्ट्री। उनके पास एक्चुअली कोई डेटा नहीं था, और उन्होंने कहा कि हमें नेशनल फैमिली हेल्थ सर्वे को रेफर कर दिया, एंड देन दे सेड कि जो 3 साल का पायलट है, उनका पायलट इवैल्यूएशन जो होगा वो 2022 में होगा। तो वी कुड नॉट गेट एनी आई मीन सिग्निफिकेंट स्टडी और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट फ्रॉम कंज्यूमर मिनिस्ट्री। हमने फिर आईसीएमआर से पूछा कि आपके पास क्या है कि केमिकली फोर्टिफाइड फूड का हमारे लोगों के हेल्थ पे क्या असर होता है, प्रेग्नेंट महिलाओं के माओ पे क्या असर होता है, क्या आपके पास कोई डेटा है, कोई स्टडी है। तो आईसीएमआर ने बोला कि उनके पास अभी तक कोई ऐसा स्टडी नहीं है which says that they have not conducted any such study to ascertain the impact of chemically fortified food। लेकिन उसी आरटीआई के रिस्पॉन्स में आईसीएमआर ने एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात कही, और मुझे लगता है कि मैं उसको एज इट इज अगर पढ़ूं तो वो ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग है। हमने उनसे पूछा कि अगर आप क्या आपके पास केमिकली फोर्टिफाइड राइस का हेल्थ इम्पैक्ट का कुछ स्टडी है या फाइंडिंग्स है, और अगर है तो उन्होंने बोला कि हमने एक स्टडी किया है विच इज डबल ब्लाइंड रैंडमाइज्ड कंट्रोल्ड स्टडी इन अ गवर्नमेंट प्राइमरी स्कूल, और ये बच्चों का एज ग्रुप था 5 to 11 ईयर, ऑन केमिकली फोर्टिफाइड राइस विच वाज बीइंग सर्व्ड एज मिड डे मील। तो उसकी जो फाइंडिंग्स थी वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग इस सेंस में है, आई एम कोटिंग द आरटीआई एज दे से, the mean hemoglobin concentrations increased to a similar extent and decreased the prevalence of anemia in children who consumed either iron fortified rice or unfortified rice. Overall, the study indicates that iron fortified rice had similar effect as midday meal on improvement in anemia. So because you all can understand through this RTI, I don't need to conclude anything from this. Then we also put an RTI with FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, और उनसे पूछा कि क्या आपके पास कोई डेटा है, आप जो कह रहे हैं कि इससे हम एनीमिया को एराडिकेट कर देंगे। Then they said FSSAI in a RTI response said कि Food Safety Standards and Fortification of Food Regulations 2018 are voluntary and based on scientific evidence examined by scientific panel, endorsed by scientific committee, and approved by food authority, which is again opposed to the present idea of mandatory food fortification. So we thought that government के पास कुछ भी significant नहीं है to claim that actually fortification could help in what they are claiming, malnutrition को tackle कर सकते हैं या maybe anemia को tackle कर सकते हैं। So I mean as larger group this is all we have in the public domain at the moment, and we are going ahead with such a huge policy. So yeah, I'll sign off by saying that. Open to Veena ma'am for all the questions, Deepjyoti and Dinesh Balam. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I would first request Chaitali to present her question. Yeah.
Audio mute.
Chaitali, are you there? So I think there is some technical glitch with her.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello to all. I don't have any question, but after hearing these two main topic of that pandemic situation, the main two reason what happened, people are suffering from the malnutrition and the anemia. So I can share my experience also, that I have also suffered from anemia few years ago when I was delivering my first baby. So I know that her situation, what people can suffer, what happened with the people. So I know that malnutrition, touchwood, I don't know still now, but I have some expect how can people can suffering, or what can the situation due to this pandemic situation. So I have some views, if you people allow me. So I have written down recently, just now, some points. Can you please go through and tell me, is it fine?
Please keep it very brief, Chaitali. Yeah.
Sorry, brief means I have written down that some reason, rescue process, and result. Three topics.
Yeah. So it will be really great if you share that with us in the chat box. I think. Yeah. So it will save the time, as well as it will be there for quite a long time, and people would like to refer that. Then they will have something in hand. Yeah.
Okay. So if you say so I can share it right now only.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Post it in the chat box, please. So, any question from the three speakers? Yeah, Katyayani, you have. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Very interesting sessions. My question is, we are procuring rice and wheat more than what is required in the PDS. We are procuring about 3 or 4 times what we actually need, and it is rotting in the FCI godown, or they are selling it to millers, to make it into very cheap flour, or we are exporting and so on. So instead of, my suggestion was that instead of procuring 3 or 4 times what we require for the PDS, only rice and wheat, why not we, and we are using about 2 lakh crore or more for that every year. So instead we can cut down the procurement of rice and wheat to how much we require, and buy more dal and oil and millets with the same amount of money. Actually, they will always say we can't spend more on food subsidy. So this is a way of overcoming the cereal concentration in our diets, and also to improve the nutrition value of the food grain given through the PDS, so that it will incentivize people to buy that because it will be at a subsidized cost, and it will also incentivize farmers to grow those less water requiring food crops, and they will get MSP also for it. So that is the way to shift them from rice and wheat to more nutritive food crops. That's my idea. I'd like the reaction, the panelist reaction to that.
Yeah, that is a really a fantastic idea, Katyayani. Because Tamil Nadu government has announced this kind of thing for Coimbatore and Chennai. They have said that they will be distributing millets under a PDS program. And as Dinesh Balam also shared about Odisha, that they have a plan to introduce all these millets and vegetables and even fruit under the PDS program. So I think the national government and other state governments should follow the suit. And it was a really a fantastic suggestion, Katen.
Thank
So
you
we
very
have,
much.
so we have Divyarti and Grandma Millets, and then Debasis Mohapatra. Divyarti, please.
हाँ नमस्कार सर, मैं AK सिन्हा GM इन सेल बोकारो स्टील सिटी झारखंड से बोल रहा हूं और थैंक्स देना चाहता हूं डॉक्टर सिद्धार्थ विश्वास ICMR एम्स दिल्ली का एंड हु इज इंक्यूबेटर ऑफ अमृत कृषि इन झारखंड एंड डूइंग अमृत कृषि इन झारखंड चाकुलिया, और उन्होंने ही मुझे इसका रेफरेंस दिया था एंड इट वाज ए वंडरफुल सेशन। कुछ अमृत कृषि का प्रयोग यहाँ मैं दिव्यांग बच्चों के साथ एक नर्सरी भी चलाता हूँ बोकारो में पिछले 10 सालों से, और उसका जो रिजल्ट है वो अमेजिंग है। फ्रॉम 1 किलो माने आदि लीजिएगा 40 किलो आदि निकल रहा है, हल्दी वैसा ही निकल रहा है सर। फ्रॉम 5 ग्राम rhizome of black haldi we have cultivated to 1.676 kilogram haldi, so it is amazing sir। and अभी मैं आप लोग को सुनना ज्यादा पसंद करूंगा सर। धन्यवाद सर।
थैंक यू सर। काफी अच्छा आपका इंटरवेंशन रहा है। So next is Grandma Millets. I don't know your name rightly, so I'm really sorry for that.
Yeah, namaskar sir. Myself Ravinder Singh from Grandma Millets. Basically, I'm sorry actually I joined late, तो मैं बहुत कुछ मिस कर चुका हूँ, तो ये मैं जान रहा हूँ, लेकिन आई होप कि आप ये सेशन कभी ऑनलाइन मुझे कहीं देखने को मिलेगा। तो जो मैंने थोड़ा सा सुन पाया हूँ, मैं बस अपने एक्सपीरियंस छत्तीसगढ़ में ट्राइबल्स के साथ में मैंने एक्शन रिसर्च किया था धमतरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट में गोंड ट्राइबल्स के साथ में, वहां पर 2 साल के ड्यूरेशन में लगभग मैं उनके साथ ही रहा 1 साल। तो जो मेरा एक्सपीरियंस जो व्हाट आई एक्चुअली कम टू नो कि तो गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसीज होती हैं, हाउ दे एक्चुअली रिफ्लेक्ट द फूड अमंग द ट्राइबल्स और टू एनीबडी, लाइक पीडीएस में वहां पर जो हमने देखा था कि वो राइस को ही सिर्फ पीडीएस के अंदर छत्तीसगढ़ गवर्नमेंट पहले लेती थी, तो उससे हुआ क्या कि सिर्फ जो फार्मर्स थे वो राइस लगाने के लिए मोटिवेटेड होते थे, वो खरीफ में भी राइस लगाते थे, वो रबी में भी राइस लगाते थे, और राइस की ही फिर उनका फूड हैबिट्स में भी देखेंगे तो बहुत ही स्ट्रगल होता था न्यूट्रिशन के दरमियान में, क्योंकि राइस अब वो भी आपको जब व्हाइट राइस मिल रहा है जिसका कि ब्रांड हटा दिया गया है, तो आपको आप देखेंगे कि उसके अंदर आपको न्यूट्रिशन तो कुछ भी नहीं मिल रहा है, बस कार्बोहाइड्रेट आपको मिल रहा है। तो उसी दौरान जब मैं 2 साल के अंतराल के बाद में उस ट्राइबल एरिया को छोड़कर जब मैं एक्चुअली इलाहाबाद प्रयागराज उत्तर प्रदेश का रहने वाला हूँ, तो जब मैं यहाँ पर वापस आया तो फिर मैंने धीरे धीरे देखा कि वहां पर काफी लोगों की धीरे धीरे ट्राइबल्स में मतलब ऐसे डेथ हो जाती है, और हमें ये भी नहीं पता लगता है कि वो उनको क्या हुआ। तो जो मोटे तौर पे मैं समझ पाता हूँ कि उनको न्यूट्रिशन की ही स्केर्सिटी रही होगी, जो कि ये न्यूट्रिशन के कारण ही उनको ये प्रॉब्लम हुई है।
Yeah, thank you. So Debasis sir, would you like to go next?
So my question was how many such schools and gardens are there in Assam? Divyajyoti to answer, please.
Deepjyoti, this is a question for you, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. So, so far, what we have done is we have worked with almost close to about probably about 5,000 schools in Assam, all in Upper Assam, and also few schools in Lower Assam. All these are government schools in rural areas. And in 2016, Assam government also adopted the program and then launched it in a scale for about 60,000 schools. And then in 2020, Government of India adopted the program and launched it for 1.2 million schools. But scaling के साथ problem ये है कि when you scale up, you forget to nurture the soul of the program, and unfortunately it has died in in most of the schools. But in the schools where we are directly working, it is functioning well, because local community is very, very important. Right now, as per the government's instruction, as per the Ministry of Education's instruction, the local KVK is supposed to help the schools to set up the school nutrition garden. And like I said, अगर agriculture experts आके garden establish करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो शायद, I don't know what will be the results of it, but yeah. I've also shared the annual report in the chat, so if people can look into it and then let me know if there is anything. अब जब iron की बात कर रहे थे, I was also going through our some of the local vegetables जिनको हम लोग यहाँ पर for example मोडू फुलेंग कहते हैं, खुटुरा हाक कहते हैं, पोसोटिया हाक कहते हैं. These are very, very iron rich and locally available. In fact, फुटबॉल खेलते हुए मैदान के किनारे में ही ये सारे वेजिटेबल्स मिल जाएंगे. इनको आप एक कटोरा भर के खाने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप इनको सिंपल दाल में डाल सकते हैं, आप चाप बॉयल करके खा सकते हैं. इट इज वेरी, वेरी सिंपल. इनफैक्ट कई सारे वेजिटेबल्स को तो हम लोग जो धान के साथ निकलता है, मैं उसका नाम भूल रहा हूँ, एक उसको तो आप मतलब क्या कहते हैं, हम लोग वीड मान के उसको फिर हटा देते हैं, but actually those are not weed. Those are very, very important vegetables that grows in our ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks, Deepjyoti. Abhishek, can you please unmute Veena ma'am?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are many questions, but I'd like to take a larger issue of diversity, which hasn't come up except in small practices. After the farmer strike has been called off, we know that hundreds and thousands of farmers have small holdings, are unable to get their returns with the MSP on wheat or whatever the monocropping is. This is a time for all agriculture experts, academics and others to help farmers switch over to crops which are more desirable. I mean, yes, there's an excess production of rice or wheat, but please don't talk about stopping procurement, because you can't procure oil or pulses, because there is 80% of oil is imported and pulse production has come down. So what are you going to procure? But if only this nation gets into a task in a mode where all farmers can switch over to more nutritious food, but also make sure that their incomes are protected, markets are made available, and the country is flooded with diverse foods. I think this should be a 5-year plan for everyone to get into. And I'm sure the crops, I mean, we have such a well-entrenched agriculture university system. Everybody should now get involved in helping farmers switch over to crops that are more desirable at this stage, rather than fortify that rice grain with iron. I think we need all the nutrients, and the farmers require much better returns for their crops. That was my point. Thank you.
So, there was a question earlier, Veena ji, about trainings of nutrition. Yeah.
I think there is National Institute of Nutrition does train up nutritionists. There are quite a few courses, quite a few meetings, and anyone who's thirsting for knowledge, it is available. But unfortunately, most nutritionists initially were the home science graduates who were expected to become good wives and were never expected to talk of nutrition. And after that, after the 80s and 90s, many of these students have gone into practice with doctors and giving dietary advice in corporate hospitals. And so they have limited their understanding to overnutrition, really. unfortunately. And the area of undernutrition is disappearing from the academia because it's not a very stylish area, lucrative area to work in. So those who are thirsting for knowledge, yes, NIN has a fund of information and it can be got. But if you want to directly train, I think most of the home science colleges use the material that is produced from National Institute of Nutrition. So that's not a problem at all. And they have annual meetings, society meetings, from where people can get all the information that they require. But it requires, you have to process that information, isn't it? So that's a problem. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Abhishek bhai, can you please unmute Rahul Saxena?
Yes.
Question.
Yeah, just.
जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार राहुल
जी। मेरी दो सवाल हैं डॉक्टर शत्रुघ्न से मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ। एक तो ये कि जो पूरा मेडिकल फ्रेटर्निटी है उसमें अभी न्यूट्रिशन का एस्पेक्ट बहुत कमजोर है। उनको इतना समय न्यूट्रिशन पढ़ने के लिए दिया ही नहीं जाता, समझने के लिए दिया ही नहीं जाता। तो उसकी ओर क्या किया जा सकता है? केवल उदाहरण के रूप में अगर हम देखें तो अगर किसी को डायबिटीज हो जाती है तो जिस प्रकार का एडवाइस उनकी तरफ से दिया जा रहा है वो बिल्कुल कॉन्ट्ररी है जो उसका डायबिटीज रिवर्स करेगा उस वाले प्रैक्टिस से। तो एक तो ये जो एलोपैथी है खासकर उसमें न्यूट्रिशन वाला एंगल कैसे ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग किया जा सकता है, एक तो वो सवाल है। दूसरा इशू है कि मान लीजिए हम लोग सब कुछ बढ़िया डाइवर्सिटी वाला भोजन खाने भी लगते हैं, परोसने भी लगते हैं, लेकिन एक इम्पोर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है कि उसको तैयार करने का जो तरीका है वो प्रैक्टिसेस हमारी काफी बदल गई हैं, खासकर यूटेंसिल्स और बिल्कुल जल्दी जल्दी पकाने वाले जो सिस्टम्स शुरू हुए हैं उनकी वजह से कुछ स्टडीज हुई हैं जो कहती हैं कि एल्यूमिनियम में या स्टील में पका हुआ खाना मिट्टी के बर्तन में पके हुए खाने से न्यूट्रिशनली काफी पुअर होता है। तो इस ओर क्या किया जा सकता है, क्या सुझाव है, वो थोड़ा उस पर थोड़ा आपसे जानना चाहेंगे।
Veena ji, both the questions are from you.
Yeah, let me explain that the medical profession never found nutrition a subject that they ever wanted to address. This was in the context of getting away from the Ayurvedic systems where everything was around what you ate, garam khana, thanda khana, वो क्या कहते हैं, तरह तरह के डिस्क्रिप्शंस आप जानते होंगे। तो and science was what was driving allopathy medicine, and as far as research was concerned, NIN was the only institute in this country and undernutrition was the area of interest. But now I feel it is gaining interest, especially doctors who are dealing with chronic diseases such as diabetes, blood pressure, cardiac problems, liver problems, kidney problems, but they have restricted themselves to understanding nutrition in this area. And every doctor, big doctor, has a nutritionist attached to the department who gives advice. But remember, the advice that she gives is so completely determined by what is happening in the West that it is sometimes very contradictory. I agree. For instance, we looked at some of the prescriptions in hospitals for diabetics, and the doctors were saying, stop eating rice, stop eating roti, stop eating oil, stop eating. But koi bolta nahi hai ki kya khana chahiye. Sab kuch band kar do, and so the patient gets frustrated, and after some time they just binge. So there is a need for more rigorous training, first understanding and then training of nutritionists. Now, who will do this is another problem. And my take is that har jaga, if you see whether it's IITs, whether it is business schools, whether it is All India institutes, now we have these big institutions in every state. National Institute of Nutrition is the only institute where there's only one in Hyderabad. I think we must proliferate research institutes on nutrition, fund corporate hospital, not corporate, the government hospitals to set up units, especially the All India institutes. Unfortunately, before we even start doing this, the Harvards and the John Hopkins and tropical diseases in the West, they've all landed up in India and they are doing nutrition research. So it has muddied the waters so badly. I really don't know how to help at this stage, and many of them don't understand Indian dietaries and Indian problems. So this is the other, and they launch young students to do their PhDs who land up here and are busy finishing their theses and produce fantastic results which are totally inapplicable to India. For instance, I'll tell you one of the students who sent a thesis to me, and she said that those who eat non-veg are nutritionally worse off. And then a little more exploration, and we found that she was working among very poor people, and those who ate non-veg were the Dalits, were the poor, and they ate non-veg maybe once a week or once in 10 days. So she classified them without bothering about the quantities. And those who were the pure vegetarians, the high caste, of course, were better nourished because they could drink milk and paneer and dal and nuts and badams, etc. So this is a problem about having Westerners come and do nutrition research. So just one example. I think there needs to be a lot of debating, and but perhaps it's already too late because the Western experts are already at our doors. And I don't know how we can redeem that situation. Now, what was the second question? I don't remember. What did he say?
Oh, it was around the cooking vessels.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, for God's sake, let's not go back into mud vessels. I think women have just been liberated out of that mess. Yes, but it's true that aluminium can be very toxic. It gets leached into the food, but please don't throw away steel vessels, because till such time that you must also think of the drudgery in the kitchen. So you want to get rid of gas, you want to get rid of, go back into Stone Age. I'm sorry, we can't put back history. We need to really work with what we have. Aluminium vessels, certainly, yes. I think the industry should stop producing vessels for cooking directly, storage, cooking, etc. The plastics are what are more frightening, because people are using plastics for storage of liquids like oil and water, etc. But then where is the context in which this information can be disseminated? I think that's very important. So plastics liberating dioxins, etc., and aluminiums, and maybe there are other kinds of alloys that could be, we should, I think, make a demand that laboratories do research in things that are relevant to our population. Yes, but we can't go back to earthenware, please. It's something that I would not.
Thanks.
endorse.
Thanks a lot, Veena ma'am. So we have crossed the time limit. Can we just have a 2-minute concluding remarks from all the three speakers, please? Can we begin it with you, Veena ma'am?
Yeah. I think that it's a long haul, and it's not just a question of nutrition. It's a question of the economy, the directions in which we are going, of agriculture, of people's incomes, and kind of we are not an advanced capitalist country, certainly. So we must address the small farmer, the low middle class households, and before we even dream of launching something like universal iodization of rice, fortification of rice with iron, we have to be very, very cautious, because we will land up with chronic diseases and will not know how to reverse this trend. See, it's very easy to destroy an existing system. It's very difficult then to reverse it. And therefore, these quick solutions like, let us stop this, let us stop that, let us just give everyone iron in the, it will definitely help the corporates, will help the big players, but certainly not an answer for the large, poor, and middle classes.
Dinesh, can you go next?
Okay, thank you. Is my voice audible?
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that I want to mention, more or less of concluding remarks. One is that at least in Odisha and some of the states, World Food Program has apparently done some studies on rice fortification, and the largest scale up is based on those pilots. Now, I don't know what that, because they have a rice fortification pilot across Africa and US. I was part of some meeting, but I don't have the report. But that's something Greenpeace can have a look at it. What is the basis and what they have connected? That's part one. In fact, the current government of India pilot is also based on that. Results of WFP, because there was a presentation WFP made to the Secretary Food. On the second part is there is larger movement as in at least the building collaborations on neglected or underutilized species across the world. Like if you see the not just BioWest International, they are NVCGR, but across last 1 year, 2-3 years, there have been great conversations around it. I think Greenpeace can also look at how to take those ideas to the field level. More discussions and consultation can be had. That is point 2. Point 3 is that another work, I have not mentioned about the seed work of Odisha Millet Mission, but one of the key things that we were trying to do when we try to bring in local land races is that any procurement or any kind of government intervention basically needs some standards, like be it food or etc. Anything, Now, by like for example, in procurement, you have something called FAQ standards, etc. Long story short, the very definition of standards excludes all the diversity. So the way quality seed is defined is by uniformity and etc. Land race is defined by diversity. I will not get into more detail, but the point is that it is utmost requirement if we want to have a climate resilient agriculture, a climate resilient food system, or a greater diverse system. The procurement standards of the government needs to be worked out, or else it is very difficult to actually for any government, even if they're meaningful, to do it. So that's one advocacy point that is required, and it needs a technical and obviously community background. Second thing is that now when we say dietary diversity and all that, and this from agriculture standpoint, we are estimated around 6,000 crops, right? There are numbers varies, like Indian ICR has, NBPGR has a 3.4 lakh accessions of different crops, diversity of crop. So the question is, how do you move around it? So there is now, if you see growing of crops as such, diversity, it increases the drudgery on women. It's just like the similar to the earthenware, So there needs to be 3 action agenda points. Maybe Greenpeace can consider. One, how to enable community to take diverse foods, in growing fields and in kitchen gardens. Second point is what kind of standards are needed, both on food consumption and food procurement. Because a government, when you say government should support, what do you are saying? You support either they should give price support, or they should be procurement support, or they should be input support like seeds and etc. Now, to do that, government doesn't have standards, which for what we are talking about, that needs to be worked out. And a larger advocacy on neglected, underutilized species and forgotten foods. I would be very happy to contribute wherever I can. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You have you and both Deepjyoti have highlighted the importance of forgotten and uncultivated food, which can be very useful in terms of climate resilience as well, and cost-wise also. And the knowledge about them are very local, very indigenous, and doesn't need any external intervention there. So I think that is a fantastic idea. So Deepjyoti, can you briefly sum up?
थैंक यू इश्तियाक भाई. मेरे ओर से बस यही मेरा कहना है. अभी तक हम लोगों ने जो भी सीखा है वो ये कि हम अगर बेनिफिशियरी शब्दों का और मानसिकता को छोड़ दें और पार्टनर्स या सीखने के लिए अगर उतरें फील्ड में, तो फिर चेंजेस आ सकता है. I'm not from an agriculture background, but all the activities that's being done is in partnership with the local people. आई थिंक लोकल लोगों के पास काफी इंफॉर्मेशन है, और जो भी हम लोग एक तो ये भी चीज है कि हमें वो एक तो बेनिफिशियरी, दूसरा स्केल, ये दोनों बहुत ही डरावनी शब्द है। क्या हम लोग छोटे छोटे मल्टीपल प्रोजेक्ट्स कर सकते हैं, मल्टीपल लोकल लेवल के प्रोजेक्ट्स कर सकते हैं, तभी ये चेंज हो पाएगा। एक चादर से पूरे इंडिया को कवर नहीं कर सकते हैं। यहाँ पे अलग अलग तरीके के अप्रोच चाहिएगा। उड़ीसा में जो चल रहा है, इनफैक्ट हमारे असम के अंदर ही, अपर असम में जिस तरह के एग्रीकल्चर होता है वो शायद सूटेबल नहीं है लोअर असम या बराक वैली के लिए। तो हमें जगह के हिसाब से अपना एग्रीकल्चर अप्रोच और न्यूट्रिशन अप्रोच को देखना होगा। और दूसरा ये है कि हमें instead of giving the man the fish, if we can teach them how to fish, that is much more beneficial, and that is the key word. It will take lot more time, बहुत टाइम लगेगा। हमारे असम में हम कहते हैं कि लाहे लाहे, वो धीरे धीरे करके बहुत टाइम लगेगा, लेकिन that's going to be a very strong change finally. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Even Kabir says धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए. So it takes time for a sustainable change. It always takes time. So thank you everyone. We have a lot of learnings from this session, and especially listening to Veena ji, Dinesh, and Deepjyoti. It is always very fantastic to talk to you. So thank you for being on board for this session. We thank you everyone for joining us. We thank all the three speakers, and we thank all of you who participated, and also those who intervened during the discussions and added to the learnings. So thank you a lot. So now we would like to close this session. Thanks a lot.